Hello. Apologies in advance if there's any clicking noises on this because I'm doing this live stream in YouTube Studio, not in StreamYard as I sometimes do. And I get this weird clicking. There are also other noises which might be coming through. And one of them is a very appropriate noise because they call it the witch's brew. The bubbling witch's brew because I'm setting up a small nano aquarium right beside my desk, and the filter and air stone makes a bubbling noise. So that's all I'm working on. I'm not working on any spells or anything, but I am completely, as I said in the description under the video, enchanted with the book that I picked up, and it's about witches. And this is where I am in the book. I very rarely do this, but after one chapter of this book, I'm totally hooked. I love it, and I know I'm going to really enjoy it. I like fiction, but I like historical books as well. Now, historical fiction is a very popular genre, but after one chapter, I don't think this is historical fiction. Um, this is based on a real event, the Salem witch trials in 1692, or it turns out 1691, depending on how you look at it, because in Salem, uh, they were using an old system, calendar system, and hadn't updated to the new system. And they were really into the old ways in 1692 as well, because they were very religious. And religion lets in a lot of ideas that you can't prove, like God. So you can't prove these things by modern science, and they rely on a faith, don't they? So witches are one of those things that go with that area. There's a beautiful picture on the front of a devil and some women offering up their babies, presumably, to the devil. So I suppose they're probably witches. Um, and there are actually lots of pictures in this book, lots of color prints in the middle, two sections of color prints. But this book is not a work of historical fiction, in that I don't think, I haven't really discovered it yet, but from reading the blurb and everything, I don't think that they've fictionalized conversations and things that happen, because this is always the thing with historical fiction versus historical nonfiction, that in historical fiction, you can take something that really happened, but you can treat it like a novel and make characters say things in it that you're not sure that they did actually say in real life. So you're fictionalizing something which historically did happen, you know? So this happened a very long time ago, and parts of the records of it actually went missing. Um, Even though they were great at the time, they were great record keepers for all court info and everything. The court info, the way it was written down, it wasn't exact. You didn't have to record exact words the way they do now. And quite often there were summaries of things made, and there were assumptions made about what was happening that were put down to supernatural forces, you know? So if you don't know, and I don't know very much about this, the only reason I picked up this book was I got it in a bargain bin somewhere. And I had gotten this one in recently in like one of these free little libraries, and this is just nothing historical about it, it's just fiction, you know. And it was a very light book. It was okay, you know, but it was a very light book. And I quite often like reading a non-fiction after a fiction, but I was still in the mood that I wanted something with some kind of a mystery in it or something, because I was enjoying the mystery element of something. So I'm still in summer reading mode, even though I'm not reading in the garden at the moment because it's decided to rain for a couple of weeks now. So even my plants are getting taken indoors on really rainy days so that the slugs don't eat all my nice flowers that they like marigolds and things I have like courgettes. So I'm holed up inside doing a lot of hobbies, and they include things like reading and painting and things like that as well, which I do anyway. But this one is seems to be very well researched according to all the blurbs. You can't really trust blurbs a lot of the time, but if you see somebody who is reviewing something and you trust their opinion, you can trust the blurb a little bit more. But even still, you can't really, you're taking a chance with the book until you actually read it. But the first chapter of this was so beautifully written. The prose in it is so beautiful that that's why it enthralled me so much, because I don't know much about the Salem witch trials. So, if you don't know much about them, part of the blurb in the back tells you that it began in 1692 over an exceptionally raw Massachusetts winter when a minister's niece began to scream and convulse. It ended less than a year later, but not before panic had infected the entire colony. 19 men and women had been hanged, and a band of adolescent girls had brought Massachusetts to its knees. So there were lots of people being accused of being witches and all sorts of goings on and strange supernatural things happening that they hauled them up on trial over. So it was there were hangings and everything as a result of those trials. So like what actually happened is what this book is about. So it's written by Stacy Schiff, and I'll show you some of the language in it that got me really hooked from the start. It starts perhaps not that promisingly, but actually that's written very well as well, now that I think of it, with a cast of characters, because it goes down all the characters for a few pages. You'll hate this small print if you're somebody who has difficulty with small print. It's very small, this section, and then it gets slightly bigger as it goes into the book. But I didn't read through the entire cast of characters, but that's intimidating, because you think when you're reading, oh my goodness, if there are this many people in it, I might have difficulty keeping up with all the events and everything. But the fact that chapter one, when I started reading, I didn't go through all the characters. They tell you a little tiny bit about each character, and I think that's to help you during the book. If that character's name comes up again, it gives you a little, you can flick back and gives you a little one-liner that sums up a few things about that character that would jog your memory. That's quite often the way in books about history, where they're trying to take in not just the context of what happened, but everybody that influenced events and was involved in events in an important way as well. They have to include a lot of characters, so they don't weed out things the way they might in an historical novel. And I don't like historical novels really for that reason, because I don't know what happened, what didn't happen, and what is just fanciful stuff on the author's imagination. And it makes me want to go off and read another book on the same subject to find out, did that bit really happen? Because psychologically, that would be a thing that would be very relevant to the events that happened and me understanding the events that happened. So I tend to stick to people like David Starkey is a favorite of mine. I read his book about the wives of Henry VIII and absolutely loved it. And he's just a wonderful, sparkly personality as well, even in his books that comes through. But I don't like dry historical fiction. You know, the kind of thing, if you've read historical fiction, that starts with such and such's great grandfather was. Biographies are great for this. I hate biographies for this reason. They seem to always start with somebody's great great grandfather and work their way down through several generations of very uninteresting people or uninteresting to the reader until they get to the person that they actually want to read about. So they have the life beaten out of you by the end of the first chapter because they're speaking about people and events you're not interested in. And while it gives you some context about the shaping of that person's personality that you are reading about, it's not really where your interest lies. So Tracy Schiff, Stacy Schiff, has dispensed with that approach in the first chapter and just goes into the first chapter telling you the context without going into the people and who their fathers and their mothers were and everything, when you don't actually care about the people yet. So that is something that historians don't always have to worry about. If they're in academia, they don't have to worry necessarily about making something an entertaining read if they're writing dissertations or something like that, or papers, just academic papers. But they do if they're trying to appeal to a general reader. So that's very important that they appeal to me as a reader. So I'll read you a tiny little bit of chapter 1 to show you the style of the reading, which is terribly important to your enjoyment of the book, as well as the accuracy of the facts that you get if you're reading an historical book is very important. I'm not going to go off and fact check everything, to be honest with you, because I'm reading it for entertainment, not to write something about it afterwards, you know. If I was doing something on the topic afterwards, which I probably wouldn't be, I would go off and fact check things. So they're talking about the context, the time it happened and where it happened and what kind of people it happened amongst, and some of the religious ideas around it and everything. And talking about the area, she says, in all of New England, it would have been difficult to find more than a few souls to whom the supernatural was not eminently real, part and parcel of their culture, as was the devil himself. Most had a story to tell you, as many of us do today. We have all observed the occult in action, even if we do not quite subscribe to it. A year after the witchcraft crisis had passed, Cotton Mather, who was a writer that wrote about this as well and was in the area at the time, amongst the best read men in America, visited Salem. So he wrote about Salem. He lost his sermon notes. Now, I don't know anything about Cotton Mather. I might go and look him up, or I might find out more about him in this book. So he was supposed to be amongst the best read men in America. He visited Salem and he lost his sermon notes, which turned up a month later, scattered through the streets of a neighbouring town. So that's an interesting little factoid there. And with historical books, if they're well written, you find out these little things that make you want to find out more and get you interested in something else. So I might go off and find out about Cotton Mather because I don't know anything about him. Was he a pastor as well as somebody who wrote? Did he just write sermons? Did he travel around the country? Who was he? So he concluded, because his sermon notes went missing, he must have been a pastor if he was doing sermons. He concluded that diabolical agents had stolen them. So this is part of the historical context that she's telling us that, there wasn't another context other than a religious one, for you to interpret things. One no more doubted the reality of sorcery than the literal truth of the Bible. So to do so was to question the sun shining at noon. So it was supposed to be self-evident, unlike modern science, which says you have to, if you're going to make some kind of a definite statement that something is true, you have to offer up some kind of proof, and be able to prove it under what they'd call lab conditions, or, formulaic methods or something. So, faith aside, witchcraft served an eminently useful purpose. The aggravating, the confounding, the humiliating, all dissolved in its cauldron. It made sense of the unfortunate and the eerie, the sick child and the rancid butter, along with the killer cat. What else, shrugged one husband, could have caused the black and blue marks on his wife's arms? Killer cat, you see, associated with witches. It's really good writing, isn't it? It's just her facility with words is just, she does use words very evocatively, but accurately as well. So it's excellent stuff. And I was chuckling at this morning because that first chapter was all about the context of the thing. And the trial hasn't actually started yet. She's just kind of setting the scene. But in chapter 2, which is called That Old Deluder, she starts it with kind of a little thing to hook you in, written by Cotton Mather in 1692. Just a little quote at the beginning of the chapter. But who can tell what miraculous things I may see before this year be out? And it was 1692, that year. So our expectations that this is going to be a very exciting story, that just happens to be a true story, is being built up, you see. So it's being built up like a novel, but it's not a historical novel. It's history. It's recording history, you see. It's a researched historical piece as opposed to a historical novel. But this chapter starts out, the tone changes, because I was thinking in chapter 1, okay, well, if the tone goes on and there's another couple of chapters of just context, I will start getting a little bit bored, because I'm dying to get to the bit about what happened at the trials, because I don't know anything, you see. But it changed immediately, and the whole feeling changed, because I started giggling at this. Here's how it starts. Skimming groves of oak, mossy bogs, and a tangle of streams, Anne Foster sailed above the treetops, over fields and fences, on a pole. In her pocket she carried bread and cheese. It was mid-May 1692. After a wet spring, a chill hung in the air. Before Foster on the pole sat Martha Carrier, half Foster's age and the dauntless mother of 4. Carrier had arranged the flight. It's great, isn't it? It's great stuff. So she's writing it now, like, from the point of view of somebody who's a believer, obviously. Because she's writing as if this is true, that you can fly, you see, if you're a witch, that you can fly. So that's great. So, I mean, we know from the first chapter that the tone is going to change again, and that we're going to hear some facts as well. But the funny aspect of the thing, although it wasn't funny, the trial, there were a lot of aspects to it that apparently weren't funny, because if people were sentenced and hanged and everything over these allegations. A lot of things that weren't funny, but I think we're allowed to have a bit of a laugh so many centuries later at the kind of belief systems that create those kinds of hysteria over something that you can't see or touch, and maybe nothing to do with that altogether, like the cat that left the bruises on your man's wife's arm. Perhaps that wasn't the obvious conclusion to draw about who could have left those bruises, because cats don't even have thumbs and fingers, do they? So It's going to be a good read, I think. And I will write under this video afterwards whether I enjoyed it or not. And it's kind of a relief after, I don't want to say I hated this book. This is going to sound like I'll do my booktube thing, because the booktube thing is, I'm not young enough to do this, but it's usually somebody who's in their 20s going, I want to say I didn't love it, but it was okay. So that's what I'd say about this one. The topic and everything of antiques and murder go really well together and are fun, but from the point of view of the way it was written, it left a little bit to be desired. I mean, I think it might have been the person's first novel, so well done to that person, C.L. Miller, who knows about antiques, and had her mum who is, I think, an advisor or on the Antiques Roadshow, advising her about some of the antiques in it and everything. But it was entertaining read, but not well written, that kind of way. And you know me, I'm a demon for for style, and the style of the way this is written it's a rare find for a historical book, because it's not dry and dusty. The style of it's very, very engaging. So it's going to be a great read. I can't wait. I can't wait to carry on with it. I'm almost glad that the weather is dreadful. So that was my little recommendation. I'm always trying to encourage people to read cool books, and sometimes you find them in bargain basements, and sometimes bargain basements or little libraries or places like that are great, or books that people give you, because they can be things you wouldn't normally read, you see. So I only picked that one up because it was cheap. And when I read it, I went, oh, that's kind of interesting. I might read it sometime. So I've had this book for ages and left it there. And the way I read is I don't have a to be read list that I go through, like some booktubers I've noticed do. They have this list for a month and they work their way through the list. I go by how I feel. I say, what kind of a book am I in the mood for? And I wanted something a little bit heavier than the light read I had the last time, but still entertaining. And I rooted around and found this one. So I think I'm going to really enjoy this. So I'll get back when I read it or get further into it. I'll get back into the comments and tell you more. For anybody who's interested in it, the publisher's details are down below. And the year came out 2015. I don't know how much it is new, because I got it cheap, you see. So books are great value, even in times where economically everything's up in the air. A lot of my viewers are American, and sort of American politics has influenced stock markets, and everybody is a bit kind of iffy about spending on anything, and worried about grocery prices and things. But books, you buy a book, you've got entertainment for a few days, as opposed to going to a film or something like that. Although who goes to the cinema anymore? But you get a bit more in-depth entertainment than you would at a Netflix or something like that. Probably better for your mind. You get a mind workout on these things as well. So I think books are something that, because you can get them secondhand as well, they're great value, whether they're new or secondhand, because you can have a little friendship swap group with books and everything as well. So it really makes sense getting into books during sort of economically difficult times. But of course, books, you can get into them anytime, can't you? But it's never a waste of money spending money on a book, I don't think, unless it's a book it turns out that you really can't stand. That's a really silly book and you got nothing out of it, that kind of way. But I think I'm going to get a lot out of this book. So, okay, I rabbited on long enough about that latest enthusiasm, and I'll come on sometime and rabbit about shrimps. Yes, shrimps for my nano witch's cauldron. Sorry, my nano aquarium. Because my aquarium is nearly cycled, i.e., I have done the magic of establishing the nitrogen cycle within the aquarium, I think. Because if all the tests keep going the same for the next week, it's ready to put shrimp in, because it's a little lovely uh, eco biosystem in there for them to thrive in. And I'm going to get 3 little yellow shrimp, and they're going to live in there with my little stowaway crew of bladder snails that came in with the plants. And I'll be able to sit there and look at my aquarium, and I will show it to you when I get the shrimp in. And I might do a live about aquariums as a hobby, because this is a hobby channel. But I have been doing some shorts on it, and I have them all on an nano aquarium playlist for anybody who's kind of curious about that hobby or anything like that. Because shorts are a good format for those kinds of things, as well as all the other witchy things about the natural world that I'm into. That's our view of witches, isn't it? Really, our modern view is that anybody who messed around with herbs or anything was considered a witch. But I suspect that I will find out that there are a lot of other reasons that people um, wanted to call these people witches and warlocks, wizards. The author is calling them, because there are wizards involved in this as well. So witches and wizards, it's a very interesting topic, isn't it? And a bit of fun from a modern perspective to look at it, because it just sounds so crazy, doesn't it? Bye bye. Have a great day, whether you're reading or whether your weather's nice enough to go out or whatever you're doing. Have a good day. Bye.